Dear Elliot, right now you are 2 months from being born. We just found out that you have trisomy 18, also called Edwards syndrome. Doctors tell us that you won't likely make it to birth. Your mom and I are praying against that. We're praying for healing.
Welcome to another Life on Film screening, brought to you by the National March for Life. My name is Josie Luetke, and I am the Director of Education and Advocacy for Campaign Life Coalition and one of the National March for Life Organizing Committee members. Today we have one guest and two short films to show you, Along for the Ride and 99 Balloons. Joining us now to talk about our first short film, Along for the Ride, is Christina Bennett, live-action spokesperson, pro-life speaker, and Christian minister. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So our first question is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your personal connection to the abortion issue?
Sure. So I am a pro-life advocate, as you mentioned. Grew up in a pro-abortion state of Connecticut, where I still live today, and never heard abortion talked about at home, never heard abortion talked about at church. But I found out in college that I was once scheduled to be aborted. I found out that my mom confronted the abortionist and told him that she wanted to keep me and walked out of her abortion appointment. It was a janitor who saved my life at the 11th hour. My mom was in the hospital gown, and a janitor saw her crying and walked up to her and said, "Do you want to have your baby?" And my mom said yes, even though she'd already paid for the abortion, even though she was in the white hospital gown. And the janitor said, "God is going to give you the strength." And she was absolutely right. God gave her the strength to not only get up, but to go face to face with this doctor who told her, "You've already paid for this. You're just nervous. You just need to stay," and yelled at her, telling her, "Don't leave this room." But she ran out. She never planned to tell me that story. But when I was in college at church, someone approached me and said, "God wants you to know something. Something remarkable happened around the time of your birth." And when I asked her if anything remarkable had happened, she was very hesitant. She did not tell me. She said she met an angel before I was born and didn't want to talk about it. But then after a couple months, I asked her again, and then she told me. And that compelled me to learn about abortion and learn about the pro-life movement and get involved. And so I got involved in my early 20s. I'm 41 years old now. So I have been fighting for abortion for a long time, fighting against abortion and fighting to save lives. And I believe it's the most important human rights, civil rights issue of our day.
I love stories like that because they remind you that, the victims of abortion are not just hypothetical, they're real human beings.
Right.
The stories of those survivors, I think, are one of the most compelling arguments against abortion.
Yes, absolutely. And there are so many people who we haven't heard their stories. I have friends, Melissa Oden, Claire Caldwell. They actually survived the procedure of abortion, and they came out from a botched abortion where in some cases they were physically maimed from that. But there's many other people whose stories we've not heard, but they exist. They exist. And hopefully in the days to come, we will continue to hear more of those stories because we need to put a face to the reality of what people call choice.
Exactly. And can an abortion supporter, look you in the eye or look Melissa Oden in the eye and say, you shouldn't be here, actually? I don't think that many are prepared to do that. But that's
right.
Explicitly what they're saying when they support abortion.
Yeah, usually what they say, because they can't do that, they can't say that. So they'll say, "Well, I'm glad your mom had a choice." But I'm like, but what choice are you talking about? To kill me? You're glad she had the choice to kill me? If you actually follow it up and ask them that, it's very uncomfortable. But they're used to just saying the word choice to kind of hide the reality of, because you're not going to say, "Well, I'm really glad that your mom had the option of violently dismembering you and having your body turned into medical waste." It's like no one's going to say that. So I'm glad she had the choice. is a way that they feel comfortable and pushing back because the story makes them uncomfortable.
Well, it's a very effective euphemism, as we've seen.
Right.
Can you tell us more about the work that Live Action does?
Sure. So Live Action is a human rights organization, and we are really a global digital leader when it comes to pro-life work, pro-life marketing, graphics, media. We have over 2 million followers on Facebook, millions of followers across our TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, our website. We have a news blog called Live Action News where we're sharing relevant information, cutting edge information about politics, personal stories, human interest stories. In addition to that, we are doing all sorts of video campaigns that change the hearts of women and men. We take them to the streets and we show pro-choice people these videos, and it causes them to become more pro-life as they watch the videos. We have videos that talk about abortion from former abortion doctors who explain in detail what's actually happening in abortion, as well as videos that show the development of a preborn baby growing in the womb. And so we do events, and we're on the street reaching out to people, rallying, doing protests in various things in locations where there's pro-abortion doctors or hospitals, and we're calling them out. There was just a protest that Lila Rose, our founder, did just this week in front of a building where they were having a meeting for Walgreens and their shareholders. And it was protesting because now Walgreens is going to be offering the abortion pill. So we are trying our very best to turn this nation into one that values life from the most vulnerable and at the youngest stage, which is a child in the womb.
I definitely recommend that our viewers do check out some of Live Action's other films as well. I've watched some of them. They are very effective. Why is it that Live Action chose to create Along for the Ride in particular?
Well, with Along for the Ride, we really wanted to do just what the title says, take someone along for the ride during the process of a baby growing in the womb, for them to see all of the movement of the child as it's jumping, as it's stretching its hands, and to also see how that impacts the woman as she's going through her pregnancy. And so Along for the Ride is a video that it can be shown to youth groups, it can be shown to young children. Some of our videos, we would suggest that they're for older audiences. But this is one that young children can watch as well, because it's just a very beautiful story. And it shows a hopeful perspective, which is so important because we're talking about abortion so many times. There's fear, there's lack of hope and anxiety, which is what leads women to have abortions. But in this story, we're seeing a happy couple, a beautiful couple who are experiencing the joy of pregnancy. And it's something that people need to be educated on, because the abortion industry tells them it's just a lump of tissues, it's just a clump of cells. But then when you get a window into the womb through this video, you can see, no, it's more than that. It's a growing, living, beautiful human being that needs to be protected.
That sounds awesome. I'm very much looking forward to watching it, and it's now my honor to present Along for the Ride. wasn't that so sweet and heartwarming? The video actually brings to mind my own sister's pregnancy. She's expecting right now. And so it's neat for me to think about how my preborn nephew has already experienced his first family Christmas with us. And also another pro-life speaker, Stephanie Gray Connors, she lost her first pregnancy, but she wrote a blog post about how her daughter Lele still went on a beach outing with her parents and got to experience a Canadian Thanksgiving like from inside the womb. So I was wondering, why is it important to merge these perspectives of life both inside and outside the womb?
Well, I think it's important because we want to show people that there's this continuation of life, that life has already started. Now, if you talk to someone that's pro-choice, they're going to say, oh, that's a potential life. But, they would never say that to a woman who announces that she's pregnant. If their friend told them, I'm pregnant, they would never say, congrats on your potential life. They would say, congrats on your pregnancy and on your baby. It's only when we come to have these discussions about abortion do people use language that distances them from the reality of what's happening in the womb. So they use the language of, oh, it's a fetus, or it's a potential life, or it's a parasite, or a clump of cells, or something like that, because they don't want to acknowledge that it's a child. In every other circumstance, when a woman says she's pregnant, we know and we acknowledge right away, it's a baby. Congratulations on the baby. I'm so excited for you. So we know that life is growing in the womb, and that when they are born, that they're just going from one stage to the next stage. Fetus just describes one gestational stage. Infant is a stage. Toddler is a stage. A teenager is a stage. And so there is this continuation of life from the moment of conception until natural death. And only if human intervention comes in, is that life ended, in the womb. Or if there's, as you mentioned before, with miscarriage, which I myself have also suffered. Sometimes it's not, human intervention. It's just various things that go wrong with your body, because we are human beings living on a broken world, and we have bodies that don't always function in the ways that we want them to. But there's still that value to that life. And when I had the miscarriage myself, and I lost our son, who I found out was a son because of genetic testing, that was a very tragic experience. At the same time, I was so grateful for those moments that we had, and to know that that child was, nurtured in the womb. And even the fact that I refused to do any procedures, not that that's a wrong thing to do, because if the child has passed away, it's not wrong to, do a D&C or something to remove the remains. But I chose just to wait to let it happen naturally. And I was able to in my circumstance. Not everyone's able to do that, but I was able to in my circumstance, just allowing room for a possibility of a miracle, and just holding on just to value that life as long as I possibly could. And that whole process actually led to my husband and I adopting through the foster care system, which is something that was so beautiful. And so, even in tragedy, the tragic things that we walk through can open up a door to really joyful, beautiful things at the same time. That's the human experience. And so I think it's just important to, to share those stories about loss and about life, and to connect them to the reality of, what's happening in the womb, because this is all about acknowledging the beauty of life, how it can be taken away in a moment, how we can lose that life, and how, therefore, when we have it, we shouldn't intentionally take it. We should fight to protect it to the best of our abilities.
My condolences about your loss.
Thank you.
It's really nice to hear about your relationship with your son. That's something that live action says as well. In the film, they talk about a baby's relationship with her parents. So how does this relationship begin to form, before you see your child actually?
Well, I think it just forms in your heart. Obviously it's a physical thing happening in your body as well. But also there's something in your heart that acknowledges, I'm a mother, and what does mother mean? What should mother mean? Not everybody's had a good mother. I understand that not everybody's had a good father. There's a lot of neglect that happens in our country, But when you think of a mother, and what are the best words that come to mind? I would think it would be nurture. I would think it would be comfort, protect, reassure, love, provide, care for, cherish, all of these different words. And so when you become a mother, which is the moment of conception, when you become a mother, those things are required of you. You're required to put the needs of someone else before your own need. You might not feel like eating, but you need to eat. You might not want to take your prenatal vitamins, but you need to take those vitamins. You may not want to get the sleep, but you need the sleep. Not just for yourself, but for this other child that's growing inside of you. People say my body, my choice. It's a lie, because there are two bodies. And once you become pregnant, another body has entered the room, another body has entered the text, the chat, there's somebody else there. And that person has to be considered in everything that we do. And that's my prayer and hope for, women considering abortion, that they wouldn't look at this child as an enemy, to be disregarded, that they're pitting themselves up against my life or your life. But they would look at this child as someone that they want to be hospitable towards. The womb is hospitable. But unfortunately, we have control now over that process. And so we can remove a child from the most hospitable, warm, and welcoming place, and cast them out. And so we have to fight so that women would know that life is worth protecting.
What does it mean about abortion then, that it not only ends a human life, but it ends a human relationship as well? Because I think we focus a lot on the former, but the latter is very significant too. If motherhood really does begin at conception, what's that impact on the woman then when she does have an abortion?
Well, I like the way that you worded that question, and I have to say that I don't think I've ever heard anyone word it that way before, because it's very deep. Asking that question about a human relationship, because the first thing that I think about is my mom. When you say that, my mom lives down the street from me. I didn't always live in Connecticut. After college, I moved to DC, and I was in Atlanta for a couple of years, but now I'm home and I have a beautiful home. She lives down the street. I probably see her every few days, and now she's 75, years old. And she is a grandmother to Isaiah, to my son, and to my stepdaughter. And the relationship that a mom has to a child is it's such a beautiful thing. But then that relationship also spreads out into different things. It gives you the possibility of becoming a grandmother, it gives you the possibility of becoming a mother-in-law, to somebody else. It gives you all these different possibilities of being, a spiritual mom or a mother figure to other people. Like my mom, when I was in high school, my friends would come to her, some of my friends would talk to her, and she was like a mom to some of my friends. And I think about all the people that I've met along the way of doing pro-life work, and who've met my mother, and through ministry and different things, and how she's connected with them. And so it's like one relationship connects that person to so many other relationships and so many other opportunities, and to have a family. Without me, there wouldn't be my brother. Like if my mom had aborted me, then it wouldn't have been possible for her to have my brother, at the same time, in the same way. Like he wouldn't have existed. Now she could have had other children, but like my actual brother, if you have that one abortion, you're not going to have the same exact child, 3 years later or whatever else. And so then he would have been gone, and his kids would have been gone. And again, who knows what could have happened. But there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees to say, oh, well, she would have then gone on to have more children with somebody else. She might not have. It reminds me of, It's a Wonderful Life, that famous Christmas movie with George Bailey. And when he comes to the realization that without his life, other people's lives would have suffered. His wife did not get married. There was a person, his brother did not get saved because his brother had an accident at a young age and he saved him. His brother died. His wife remained single. And so, as human beings, we don't like to think about that because it's a painful thing. And even women who are having abortions will often think, I'm just not ready for this child. And when they say that in their mind, what they're saying is, I'm not ready for this child, but I'm going to have a child down the road, probably, most likely. But that's not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. You don't know if you're going to die from the abortion. You don't know if the abortion is going to make you infertile. And so we don't know what we have. And so I think when you say the word relationship, that's probably the most tragic thing, because not only, of course, is a life died, but like an entire lifetime of laughter and even, disagreements and going back and forth. And if you're, like I'm a pretty girly girl. So with my mom, it's like my last birthday, we had tea party and my mom had a big hat on and I had a big poofy dress and, we had a big tea party with my friends and a full table of food and laughing and drinking tea. And that's just one birthday. And just all of those memories, all of those things just erased. It's hard to think about because you can't put a price on that. You can't put a price on that.
I think also just, knowing how choosing life, affirming life, even making the courageous decision, the self-sacrificial decision, all of that produces an abundance of life in a way that you can't anticipate in that moment. And it's really
absolutely
beautiful to think of, but also sad to think of how many people are making the opposite choice and not really realizing how great that loss really is.
Right.
In the film, you can really tell how excited this new mom is to tell her partner and her parents that she's expecting. What about those people who don't get such a positive reception, though?
Well, that's a really difficult thing. My mom was one of those people. She went to her mentor first and told her she was pregnant, and her mentor at church said, "You're not welcome here anymore." My father was pressuring her and coercing her to have an abortion. And she didn't really have anybody in her corner. And that's part of the reason why it took a janitor. It should have never had to have been a janitor. It should have been her church mentor. It should have been my father. It should have been somebody else, and instead of her having to get to the 11th hour and rely on a stranger. So for the women who don't have that positive partner, the women who don't have that friend, there are people in the pro-life movement who want to be that for you. Many of them work at pregnancy resource centers and they volunteer their hours, waiting and hoping that someone will come through the door who is in a situation just like that. And they are there with arms wide open to love on you, to walk you through your pregnancy, to be with you for years after. I worked at a pregnancy center and I'm still connected to some of my former clients. I'm still in relationship with them. I'm still, sending them gas money or helping them babysit or, picking them up for church and things like that. And so there are people out there. They can't replace your mom or your dad or your family or your partner if, he's really upset, but they can come alongside of you and they can give you support. And you might find in due time that some of those other people who have been resistant, they may have a change of heart. I have seen that happen multiple times where someone is very angry that their daughter's gotten pregnant or family members gotten pregnant. And then when that baby comes, it is just a different story because it's really hard to stay angry at a beautiful little baby, unless you have mental health issues or something, or you're just an abusive partner or person. Most times family members who are healthy, but maybe disappointed about, you're having a baby early or something else. They often come around and they often regret their responses in that time. And so I would say, look for someone that can help you. It could be a minister. It could be a medical professional that you trust. It could be a friend or someone specifically in the pro-life movement who will rejoice with you, because there are people who will help you.
Yeah, I've definitely heard stories like that where parents are initially very disappointed and everyone's so afraid to tell their mom and their dad because they don't want to disappoint them. But eventually, those parents come around because they don't want to give up on the opportunity to be grandparents and, they're
right.
in love with their grandchild. So obviously it's really scary at first but, eventually, they do come around.
Right.
The main takeaway of the film for me is that life goes on. Life
Yes.
doesn't end with pregnancy. It's not over. And you're really just getting an extra person, a beloved family member, to experience all the seasons of life with. So for you, what would be the main takeaways of the film?
I mean, I think it's similar, but just that that life is a gift. It's a simple truth, but it's true. I mean, no matter how much money you have, no matter what race you are, no matter what the circumstances that you are born into, not every person gets a chance to live on this earth. And it's a gift. Some people will only live for a few years. Some people will live until they are in their hundreds. And we don't determine, the span of our own life. But every moment that we have is a moment that's worth cherishing, is a moment that we have to be good to another person, to love somebody else, to come to know God, in faith, to serve people, to care for other people. And so just seeing that life celebrated and seeing the joy, that's what it reminds me of. Life is a gift.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you very much, Christina, for sharing your time and expertise.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was lovely having you join us.
Thank you. God bless.
And we have another short film to watch. This one is called 99 Balloons. It's from Igniter Media. It's about Elliot's story. In this case, we're just going to jump right into it. Brace yourselves.
Dear Elliot, right now you are 2 months from being born. We just found out that you have trisomy 18, also called Edwards syndrome. Doctors tell us that you won't likely make it to birth. Your mom and I are praying against that. We're praying for healing. We're praying for nothing less than a miracle. You're our first child, and the day of your birth couldn't come sooner. Dear Elliot, you were born today weighing in at 6 pounds. You are already a miracle to us. Your mom is doing well, and it looks like we'll be hanging out here at the hospital a little longer. Dear Elliot, today you turned 11 days old. We are so proud of you. Today we celebrated your 11th birthday. In fact, we do that every day at 4:59, the time you were born. Dear Elliot, we've been home for a week now, so that's why you don't see your nurses anymore. It's great to have you home. Today I think we'll pack up everything and take our first venture out for coffee. Dear Elliot, I don't know if you've noticed, but you're connected to some tubes. The doctors say we have to keep these in so you can get oxygen to breathe. You are also fed through a feeding tube. We feed you every 3 hours and it takes an hour and a half to do it. We've loved learning how to best take care of you. We love it. Lots of people email, call, and send cards on your behalf. You're well loved. It's 11 at night right now and my feeding shift has just begun. Mom is asleep and the best part of my day has begun. My shift ends around 4:45 a.m. when your mom takes over. She cherishes her mornings with her boy. Today you turn 1 month old. I didn't know if I'd ever get to say that. To top off the day, 20 friends showed up at the door for a true surprise birthday party for you. They sang, brought balloons, and a birthday cake. It was beautiful chaos. At 2 a.m. this morning, your feeding tube came out. We had been warned this may happen eventually. We quickly realized we did not have a stethoscope, which was necessary to replace the tube. Since our neighbor was a nurse, I went ahead and knocked on their door at 2:30 a.m. They found their stethoscope and your mom went to it. After much wrestling, praying, and your tears, the tube was down, and you were able to feed. Just so you know, your mom is my hero. Dear Elliot, you now weigh 7 pounds 3 ounces. You're growing and your food has been bumped up because of your good appetite. You continue to find new ways to steal our hearts. Dear Elliot, today marks 2 months of your life. Your mom and I are so thankful we know you. We know your face, your noises. We know that bath time and massage are your favorite daily activity. You finally learned how to suck your thumb by yourself. Because of trisomy 18, you were born with clenched fists, and being able to do this is actually quite difficult. Way to go, son. Dear Elliot, we celebrate your birthday every day with a picture. Lately, we've tried to get a bit more creative. Dear Elliot, I realize you can get frustrated with your tubes and your frequent congestion. Please know that your mom and I are doing everything we can to make you comfortable. Dear Elliot, well, you tipped the scales today at 8 pounds 14 ounces. Quite an accomplishment. You also have managed to grow a pretty decent mullet. Dear Elliot, we all got to go to a reunion at the hospital. I've never seen your mom more happy. The joy she felt getting to show off her son can't be described with words. In fact, she compared it to the way a mother would feel when her son becomes president or wins a Heisman or develops a cure for cancer. The logic of medicine says you shouldn't be alive, but you are. You are such a fighter. Dear Elliot, you have now passed the 3-month mark. You also got your first cordless pictures taken today. No feeding tube, oxygen, or stickers. This was no small accomplishment, but we got it done. Have I told you lately that we are so proud of you? Dear Elliot, today you went to be with Jesus. An underdeveloped lung, a heart with a hole in it, and DNA that placed faulty information into each and every cell of your body could not stop God from revealing himself through a child who never uttered a word. Not a pulpit, not a slick presentation, not a best-selling book, but a 6-pound boy with trisomy 18. God found great pleasure to take a lowly thing in the eyes of the world and show truth. At your funeral, we released 99 balloons, each balloon representing a day of your life. How beautiful it was to watch, how quickly they were gone. And so today, we celebrate. Elliot, you are well, and although we miss you more than we can express, we're only separated from you by our time left on earth. See you soon, son, Mom and Dad.
That video never fails to bring tears to my eyes. Whenever anybody brings up abortion in the case of fetal abnormality or disability, I nearly always recommend that they watch 99 Balloons because it conveys the pro-life message in a way that words never could. And now I'm going to ruin it by talking about it anyway. So for some background and context, when people bring up abortion due to disability, they're usually actually referring to abortion in the case of Down syndrome or something like that. The majority of children with Down syndrome are aborted, which is tragic because you can live a long and happy life with Down syndrome. So it's not really about suffering in this case. It's really about parents not wanting to have a child who's different and being afraid, I guess, and not having confidence that they can parent. And unfortunately, our society and our culture feeds into those fears rather than empowering those parents. Also, some cases, the fetus is perfectly healthy. There's just something that appears on the ultrasound screen that gives the physician pause. And instead of being patient and looking into this, often these doctors will just recommend that parents abort and try again. Better to be safe than sorry and just kill the child in case they have a disability. So I just want to be clear that, again, when we're talking about abortion due to the case of some fetal anomaly, it's usually not because of these hard cases like trisomy 18, but something else. That said, these hard cases, these children are still deserving of the right to life, and their lives still matter as well. A good rule of thumb is that if you won't kill a child after birth because of their disability, you shouldn't kill them before birth because of their disability, because there really isn't any difference. That said, I do acknowledge that reasoning is weaker these days because you do have people arguing for child euthanasia. We do see any suffering after birth as an excuse to kill that child, which is why we're looking at, infanticide potentially in Canada. Pro-life speaker Stephanie Gray Connors actually brings up a good analogy. She asked you to imagine if a close friend of yours revealed that they had terminal cancer and that their days were numbered and they were going to die soon. You could respond in one of two ways. You could fly across the country to be with them and to make the most of their limited time, to cherish those last days. Or you could stay at home and you could just say, I don't want to deal with that pain and that suffering, so I'd rather, not go to see them at all. And, I think that approach is understandable, but the former option is what we're really all called to do. We're called to show compassion, to suffer with. And, either way, it's going to be painful. It's better to be with them and to, make the most of their presence before they pass on. And so our response should be the same when we're faced with circumstances like Elliot's. We should really make the most of those limited number of days. And really, none of us know how many days we're going to get. None of us know when the Lord will call us home. But each of those days matter. And I say this, I've never been a parent who's had to watch his or her child suffer. I've never had to, know that I'm going to lose them soon. But from what I've heard, that you're going to grieve regardless. You're going to mourn regardless. But that healing is easier when you get to know that child and you trust in the Lord and his timing, rather than try to prematurely bring about that child's death, because your culpability in killing him or her interferes with letting that child go. And again, it's not going to spare you from that grief and suffering. I think there's a misguided idea that if you kill that child before you get to know him or her, it will be easier. And that's not the case. We are called to love. And I guess the silver lining in this situation, if there can be a silver lining, is that that child only knew love and he didn't know hate. Elliot was, celebrated by his parents. They marked every milestone. And that same sentiment should apply regardless of how long that child gets. Even if he or she never exits the room, their life can still be cherished and celebrated. And like I said, none of us know how much time we have on earth. But every day is valuable. And so the next time someone brings up abortion in the case of fetal abnormality or disability, show them this video. This is what real love looks like. This is the sacrifice that every parent should aim to replicate. That brings to an end this Life on Film screening. A reminder that the National March for Life is on Thursday, May 11th. Please go to our website, marchforlife.ca, for more information. We really need you to start organizing buses to go from your church, or organizing school trips. Start booking your hotel rooms. Start spreading the word. If you haven't heard, our theme is Stand Firm. You can find an explanation of why we chose that theme, more about it, and also a conversation with Jeannie Mancini of the BC March for Life on this channel. If you haven't yet subscribed, do so, and have a good evening.
The historic overturning of Roe v. Wade announced to the world, life will win if we stand firm. But the attack on life is far from over. In Canada, 300 babies in the womb are killed each day, increasingly by chemical means, while our Prime Minister muses about making abortion a right. Euthanasia is exploding, And soon, people with mental illness could be eligible to request it to end their lives. And now, infanticide is being considered for children with severe disabilities. If there was ever a time to stand firm for life, that time is now. On May 11th, Canadians from all walks of life will come to Parliament Hill to stand firm for babies in the womb, for mothers in crisis pregnancies, for those living with a disability, for the elderly in hospitals and care homes. Life will win if we stand firm.